We have about 10 participants on, which I think is really great. We have you all on mute, but the chat room is open. So we're going to first talk with Trisha Herman from Phillips County Economic Development for a little while about some things I've been seeing that she's doing in her county. And then we'll be glad to answer any questions that come up in the chat room or put you live after we're done digging all the information out of Trish that we can get on her. I was excited to have her say that she would join us this morning because I've been watching what she's doing in Phillips County. And I'm sure there are probably other counties that have similar things, but she's been doing what I think are some really creative things. And she's been sharing them with the rest of us, which makes it really nice. We don't all have to do the same thing, but any ideas we can share might spark an idea that we can do in our own county. So Trisha, why don't you just tell us a little bit first about your background, what your current job or jobs are. I see you have 2 or 3 others that you're doing now, and then we'll get into the direct questions.
Perfect, sounds good. Thank you, Kathy. My name is Trisha Herman. My full title is the Phillips County Economic Development Director. But as she said, I have many, many roles. I also hold the project coordinator title for our Holyoke Community Child Care Initiative that we've been working on for several years. I also am a business owner. I'm the owner of the Holyoke Fitness Club. And then just recently, I've kind of jumped on board with Bob with the EOC department of being the long-term recovery ESF 14 director, which is really taking everything that I do and putting it into work and just getting that whole idea of like, how do we help our businesses? How do we make sure we survive through this pandemic and the economic crisis that we have? And so it just fit kind of perfect, but I work hand in hand with my government entities. I work hand in hand with our chambers. I work a lot with our school districts too. So everything you can really think of, I'm just trying to support our community. And what's really weird is I'm actually a big city girl that grew up in a big city. And so moving here to a small town, I really have the pride and want to continue to make sure that our community just keeps on growing. So
I think that's one of the things that people don't often realize about our smaller communities and our rural lifestyle is it, and it's also the reason why we have trouble getting people to sometimes participate, because if you're involved in one thing, you're involved in everything.
Yep.
That's just part of our culture, that you take it all on. But that community pride that you talked about, how do we make sure our community stays viable, how it stays strong, all those little things are part of economic development that maybe major urban areas might not think about in terms of economic development. We do economic and we do community all together out here.
Everybody always asks, what is it that you do? Because economic development is so, it is. I mean, I questioned it first too, but really it just, to me, it's like, I'm the resource catalyst for our community, and I make sure that we bring in the resources outside of our county and help connect people and really just being able to be that backbone and support system. So.
One of the first things I noticed, Trish, that you had posted on your Facebook page for the Economic Development Office was a survey that you sent out to all of your businesses in the area. Can you give us an idea of what the questions were and what some of the results were on that survey, and what the background, why did you decide to do it?
Yep, absolutely. And I actually noticed that Bob's listening in on here, but he was with our EOC department. He's the one who got this information. Actually, I would love to say that this was 100% our idea, but it actually came from Logan County. So Logan County started working on this through their department, their emergency department, and we just loved the idea, and we really needed to embrace what is this impact? We know we're impacted, but how can we really pinpoint it? So this data infograph really kind of showed us the businesses that are impacted, whether it's high impact, medium impact, or even positive impact. So a lot of the businesses were able to answer those questions of how they were impacted by COVID-19. Then we also had the question that was, do you feel informed? And we really just wanted to make sure, and really it was working with the Haxton Chamber, Holyoke Chamber, and myself. They are also on the ESF 14 long-term recovery. And the three of us are really wanting to make sure that not only chamber members are getting this information out, but other businesses are getting this information, and maybe they want to become chamber members so they can get the information. So the question was really, hey, do you feel informed? And we actually found someone who filled out the survey. They were like, we're not being informed. So we picked up the phone and we said, hey, how can we get informed? Do you want to become a chamber member? How do you want to get this information? So that was really beneficial for us as far as just being able to connect with the businesses. There was another question about, did you have to lay off any of your employees? Because we really wanted to see, I mean, we know there's a lot of unemployment and there's a lot of people that are having to claim that. And so we wanted to see which specific businesses were actually having to lay off their employees, whether if it was temporary or not. And right now we have 50 businesses that have filled it out. We're still working on reaching out to more businesses, but out of those 50 businesses, there was only 11 businesses that had to lay off 1 to 3 employees, and the rest of the businesses did not have to lay anybody off. So it just kind of showed us those stats of we still have our businesses open. I kind of feel that we have a lot of essential businesses that have never had to close their doors. So it wasn't as an impact because we do have a lot of essential businesses that were still open. And then the last question was really, are you utilizing any of the CARES Act and any of the loans and the programs, the PPP, the EIDL? And it was really imperative that people were using the PPP program. And it didn't even show in our survey, but we did just have a newspaper article that just came out this week that even with one bank had 125 loan applications, and we have about $9.5 million coming back to our community because of the PPP. So just kind of shows that we are utilizing that CARES Act and we are utilizing all of that support.
I think it is very interesting when you talked about it's always nice. We have a lot of stories, but it's nice when you can get the details and get the numbers. Eastern Colorado Workforce sent out a bulletin yesterday, and especially our 6 northeastern Colorado counties, our unemployment is still like 3.3 or something. Now, it could be different because I know those numbers lag, but your county just shows that there was not a great amount of people laid off because we are an essential businesses type area out here. And so I think those numbers are nice to get and good information to have. I also think it's great to know how many businesses were able to get PPP loans and some of that, because we've heard the stories about how hard it was or how much they struggled. So that is really nice to know that that has happened.
Yep.
And we may have some of the bankers from the region on one of our plain talk down the road to actually talk about the processes. Because we've also heard so much about the really big guys are taking all the money off the top and it's not filtering down. Terry yesterday, or was it just yesterday? I've even forgotten. I think it was Wednesday.
Wednesday with
Senator Bennett on was talking about your Help Holyoke, Help Haxton funds.
Yes.
And I think the senator, you probably will hear that story more because it seemed to really strike him about what your community had done. So could you share a little bit about the background on that and what you're doing and what the results have been?
I was actually on that call. So when I heard it, my daughter was sitting next to me. I'm like, listen to this. So we had a call this morning, Terry and I did, and we talked about it again, just kind of the pride of, oh, wow, look what we're doing. And so really, I wish, once again, I feel like I don't want to take the it wasn't my idea. So I will tell you that Tom Bennett, he is president of First Pioneer, and he is the mastermind of this, and really kind of came up with this idea and thought, how can we give back to our businesses that were mandated and had to close? So we're talking at the very beginning, our salons, nail salons, our restaurants, our movie theaters, our gyms. How can we help support these businesses that were forced to shut down? They didn't have any choice. And so he came up with this brilliant mastermind formula that really was going to help support part-time employees, full-time employees, and the business owners and the business itself. And so the idea was to really advertise, hey, if you still have a job and you think that you don't need your stimulus check, why don't you donate it? So we really, we got Brenda from the enterprise on board to really advertise it in the newspaper. Holly at the chamber got on board and was going to call and talk to all of our businesses to get the names, to get the employees. And so Holyoke was starting this process. And then, of course, I kind of jumped in and said, hey, let's do this as a Phillips County. And so I got a group on board in Haxton to do the same thing. And so we had a group in Haxton and a group in Holyoke, and we are really wanting that money to go directly back to our businesses in that specific community. And so with that, we started advertising. We started getting out information through our chambers, through our newspapers, just social media, saying, hey, donate a stimulus check and help support our businesses that had to close. So we've been doing it for, it's probably been about 6 weeks now, maybe even more. But we are really proud to say that we have raised over $64,000 in Holyoke and $18,000 in Haxton. So we have almost a total of $100,000 raised and donated, and that money is going to be going directly back to our businesses and employees to be able to help them during this hard time.
I think that's awesome, and I like the fact that it encompassed part-time, full-time, the owner, who probably is the one that is most financially hurt, and the business itself as it moves forward. And of course, Tom Bennett, we're very familiar with. He was one of the very first starters of Pro 15. So he's been a strong advocate for us for years and does some great things in the area. Did you put any stipulations on the money for them to receive the money?
So we really didn't have anybody like apply for it. We honestly just went down and we looked at what businesses had to be shut down and were mandated to shut down. And so, but when we called them, and I shouldn't say we, I didn't, but when the committee called them, we really just said, if you feel like your business was positively impacted and you don't need this money, maybe pay it forward. We didn't want to really say, well, this person gets this money and this person gets this money. Because then it gets sticky. We were like, just as Tom is, this is what it is. This is the formula, and we will give it to you. And then you as a business, if you feel that you don't need it, or if maybe a part-time employee is like, I have another job, I don't need it, but I'd like to pay it forward. We are letting those businesses know that if you don't really need this money, just kind of like if you really didn't need the stimulus check, I mean, yes, extra money is great, but if I can help those businesses that are struggling. So we really just had a cut and dry formula that says these were the businesses that were mandated, and this is the formula to give that money to those employees.
Well, and I'm assuming that it's probably a little easier because Phillips County is even smaller than where I live in Morgan County. It's probably a little easier when to count the businesses and to know what's out there. But with all counties, it's also pretty easy. It's salons and restaurants and gyms and those kind of businesses that all were basically shut down. How do you see this going forward? Do you have a timeline on how long you think this program is going to stay in place, or do you have a finite date?
We don't, because we realize that there are some people that haven't physically gotten their stimulus checks yet, because if you weren't having, if you didn't get a return back, and depending on your pay, like there could be up to like September. There's the whole, when are you going to get that paper check? So Haxton decided they did send out $10,000 about 2 weeks ago. So they already distributed some of their money to some of the employees because they felt that they needed help now. Holyoke has not dispersed any money yet, but they plan to disperse the first round this next week. We were thinking about mid-May. So I think we're going to keep it open. People can still donate. We had some goals of $200,000 to be raised in Holyoke. But realizing that everybody's going through an economic crisis right now, that, you know, sometimes set your goals high and hope to get what you can get. And we are really pleased with what we have so far. But no end game right now. You know, it's still open for donations.
Well, the last question before we open it up to the group is some success stories with some of your businesses. I happen to be familiar with one of your businesses, which is Happy Jack Barbecue. And they have done some very innovative things. They're delivering, I noticed, to Ray and to Sterling. I don't know why we're left out here on the western part of the area. But any bright stories of businesses that were kind of shut down, like restaurants had to do a different manner of doing business? Any success stories that you can share with us from your region?
Yes, absolutely. So, which was really neat was with the impact tracker, is one of our businesses was the Peerless Theater. So they had to shut down, but
they were a what? I'm sorry.
The theater, Peerless Theater.
Oh, okay.
Our
I'm
movie
with you.
theater.
Yeah.
Yep. They, along with the restaurants, they decided to do, you know, takeout. So the movie theater also decided to be able to do takeout popcorn, hot dogs, slushies, everything else that they have on their concession, which is where they make most of their money. So with the support of the Holyoke Chamber, they started doing a weekend delivery. And so the Holyoke Chamber is doing kind of like an Uber Eats. It's a Holyoke Eats. And you can call our restaurants and say you want delivery, and then the Holyoke board and the Holyoke volunteer chamber members deliver the food. And so with that, they were delivering popcorn and concession stands from the Peerless, and they were actually one of those businesses that said they had a positive impact because they have been selling so much more concession stands than they were. And then they also started doing Mayday baskets. And so you could call the Peerless and get a Mayday secretly sent to people on their doorstep. And so people were paying money. And I can't even remember how many Mayday baskets that they went out and sent out. So just being able to support that 100%. We even had a liquor store here in town that just decided to start doing drawings for gift certificates for all of our businesses. And we had people donating, and there was thousands of dollars just spent on gift certificates to go back to our restaurants and our businesses. So just trying to come up with that creative idea to be able to help those businesses that have been closed. And yes, like you said, Happy Jacks's, they started delivering. Jen, our Haxton Chamber director in Haxton, was like, we want Happy Jacks over here. So she decided to start making sure we could maybe get some deliveries over there. So she was helping that, as Happy Jacks is a chamber member for both Haxton and Holyoke. And then the Outback, in Haxton, they reopened their doors. They were doing catering, but they saw the need of needing food in our communities because Haxton does not have as many restaurants. And so they like reopened their doors and were doing nightly specials, and everybody was supporting them. So I would say especially this all kind of goes around the restaurant business, I think everybody realized that they were going to struggle a lot. And so everybody kind of jumped on board and made sure that those restaurants got the support.
Well, that is awesome. Anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and just ask directly if you would like for clarification on what Trisha has shared with us. Quiet bunch this morning.
That just means I nailed it all, right?
Exactly. That's what that means. I'm not going to say anything about it being Friday and close to the noon hour. You nailed it. Terry, do you want to share anything?
Yes, Trish, I'm amazed how you are able to balance your time with everything that we have asked of you. I was already aware of what you could do in your main role as economic development. But when it came to, we were talking about as the Board of Commissioners, we need this recovery team put together following the guidelines. And of course, we had one name and one name only, of course, yours. Knowing that anything you have taken on as a child initiative, you have taken it on with passion and put your heart and soul into it. And you can tell that by your enthusiasm of anything that you have accomplished and are accomplishing. So we as a county would love to just thank you, and we're blessed to have you in our community. You have brought people together many times before, and it's so exciting to see what has happened. And by being able to tell that story the other night, knowing that I had no part of that, it was all yourself, the Chambers, Tom Bennett. Of course, I could have put everybody's name out there, but I knew my minutes were short.
Yeah.
But it did make us proud. As Senator Bennett said, you have to be proud of your county. And that said it all. So thank you, Trish.
Thank you, Terry.
Yes.
John?
And John's a part of the Help Paxton, so he's on. Oh.
Been listening in, and I just have to echo Commissioner Hoffmeister's comments, and Trish, you're doing a great job. And we in Haxton, we were just blessed that Trisha had a county-wide vision of Help Haxton and Help Holyoke, and it's really been awesome to be a part of this process, to inspire the giving, and then to be a part of the process when you actually give these business owners and these employees these checks that were donated locally to help them through this crisis. It's really been a beautiful experience. So I just wanted to pipe in and say, Trish, you did good.
Appreciate it. And also to shout out to both Holyoke and Haxton Chambers. We both were recipients of the $25,000 COVID relief fund. So our Phillips County is going to have $50,000 coming back to our businesses, supporting through programs and direct support. And so that's an exciting thing to share, that our county has that money coming back directly, helping our community during this need.
So I hope today that this has given you some thoughts, some ideas for your own county or your own area. It'll be up on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and listen. But I also want people to realize we tried to do a positive take on this. What are you doing positive in your community that is helping a lot of people? We don't always have to wait for the government to come. So this one might be one where it's going to be helpful to have them come. But there are things that you can do in your own community to really move things along. So Trisha, any last words before we sign off today?
Nope, just want to make sure I go back and say that all of this isn't possible without the entire community. So you have community members, business, you have county, you have commissioners, you have chamber directors. All of this is not possible. Economic development sometimes is behind the scenes, and my job is just to make sure I get the resources out. And that's why I blast things on Facebook. So that's why probably Kathy sees all my stuff, is I just want people to know about the wonderful things that are happening in Northeast Colorado and how we can support each other and how we can, and I actually was an educator before this, and so I always have the idea of you beg, borrow, and steal, because that's the best way to be. So all of these ideas, I love I can even see Kristen's on here too. All of our economic development directors, we work together to be able to help all of our businesses, and what works in one community, hey Kristen, what works in one community works in another. So I think all of us economic development directors really strive to make sure that it's a Northeast, and it's Northeast Colorado, and that we are jumping on board. And shout out to Washington County. Leanne is there too, supporting commission in Washington County. So, but really everybody and beyond here, especially those that are all listening, thank you for the support. And thank you, Kathy, for all you do for Pro 15 and for our Northeast Colorado. And I've been keeping up to date on all your plane talk. following you too. So thank goodness for social media, and thank goodness for the internet, right?
Yes, I'm loving this. This wouldn't have been here a year ago. So one last note, I would like to do a shout out to Lockheed Martin. This is a partnership. Sometimes people say, well, why do we have partnerships with people in Denver? You know, they don't know about us out here. But Lockheed Martin spent all day yesterday along the I-70 corridor and the I-76 corridor delivering gowns and face shields to our local hospitals at no charge at all. They have switched over to making these because there's not a lot of need for rockets right at the moment. And I think that just highlights those partnerships we can deal with in the Front Range. And they will probably be back again. Ebenezer was in a really bad situation in Brush because they had lost through a FEMA whatever. But the Haxton Hospital and Melissa Memorial, both know were delivered to yesterday. And they were delivered to along I-70. So those are the reasons we make those connections to then hopefully something will show up that will help us out here. Trish, thank you very much for joining us today. Next week, we'll be talking agriculture. So everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Trish.